Part 38. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 371. Thank you, Chu Qing Huang said lightly. I have something else to do, so I'll go ahead. There are no restaurants or inns here, and there is no place to stay within 50 miles. Why don't you rest in my house for a night and continue your journey tomorrow? Zhou Xiao smiled frankly, which made people feel at ease. There are often tigers, leopards, jackals, and wolves at night. It's really dangerous for a weak woman like you to travel at night. A weak woman? Chu Qing Huang didn't comment on this sentence, but just rejected his proposal. I have something important to do. Thank you for your kindness, Mr. Zhou. As soon as the voice fell, a sound of horse hooves suddenly sounded in the distance. Chu Qing Huang looked intently and saw dust flying from afar. There were quite a few people coming. When the horse hooves approached, a group of people turned over and dismounted, and saluted Zhou Xiao, sixth master. Chu Qing Huang raised his eyebrows imperceptibly. What a coincidence. My yard is not far ahead. Zhou Xiao bowed deeply. A gentleman, elegant and unparalleled, please give me some face. Is he forcing her to go? Chu Qing Huang looked at the sky and pretended to ponder. Mr. Zhou invited me so kindly, I can't refuse his face, not to mention that Mr. Zhou has just helped me. But I am a woman and I am afraid it will be inconvenient. Don't worry, my yard has many maids, and they will serve you carefully. Chu Qing Huang's eyes flashed with a slight mockery, and she nodded slowly. In this case, I will bother Mr. Zhou. Zhou Xiao's smile deepened. It should be. As he said, he took his mount from the hand of his subordinate next to him and climbed on the horse. Chu Qing Huang calmly followed Zhou Xiao into the town. This is a chaotic town at the junction of the three countries. There are not many people living there, only a few dozen families in total, most of whom, no, it should be said that all of them have a background, and ordinary people cannot survive here. Zhou Xiao's house is definitely the richest in this town. It has 3 entrances and 3 exits, and the scenery inside is very beautiful. It is well decorated at first glance. It is incompatible with the environment and atmosphere of this town. There is a different world in the courtyard. The 2 rows of maids who greeted him respectfully in the courtyard were all pretty and well trained. Zhou Xiao turned over and dismounted outside the gate, and said in a humble and polite tone, I am sorry, may I ask your name, young lady? Chu Qing Huang said, my surname is Chu. The surname Chu Inziki is the surname of the royal family, but looking at all the countries in the world, the surname Chu is not uncommon. Moreover, Zhou Xiao came prepared, and it is impossible for him not to know her identity. Chu Qing Huang is not interested in making up a fake surname temporarily. Why did Miss Chu come to this place alone? Alone, Chu Qing Huang said indifferently, didn't Mr. Zhou see the guards I brought with me? Zhou Xiao smiled, how can a guard be compared with a master? Chu Qing Huang said indifferently, so, should I also ask Mr. Zhou why he stayed alone in this place of all kinds of people? Mr. Zhou doesn't look like someone who has lived here for a long time. Miss Chu is too kind. Zhou Xiao seemed to be in a good mood. Then according to Miss Chu, what kind of environment should I come from? Chu Qing Huang looked strange. Mr. Zhou is a man who does great things, so can you not pretend to be profound in front of her? Like an idiot. Miss Chu is not only born with a stunning appearance, but also has a sharp eye. She is really a wonderful woman. Zhou Xiao smiled even more happily. I am honored to meet you. The 2 walked inside while talking. Chu Qing Huang heard the tone of his voice and became more and more certain that people doing business were foxes. Chu Ling Chuan was, and so was Zhou Xiao. However, Zhou Xiao's rank was still slightly inferior to Chu Ling Chuan. At least Chu Ling Chuan's words would not offend people, and he was truly as gentle as spring breeze. This Mr. Zhou was more suitable to be a eunuch in the palace, and he had a way to make the queen happy. Miss Chu came from the east. Chu Qinghuang looked at him silently and said nothing. Sorry, Zhou Xiao smiled apologetically, I am rude. If Miss Chu doesn't want to say it, just pretend I didn't ask. The important officials of Ziki knew that the Queen of Ziki went to Dongling to borrow money in person, but they could not determine her whereabouts at all, because Chu Qinghuang took a detour to Cangyun Mountain and stayed in Cangyun Mountain for a few days. Tracking their little princess within the sphere of influence of Cangyun Mountain was a joke for the masters of Juxiao Pavilion. Therefore, few people could accurately grasp the itinerary of the Queen of Ziki who came from Dongling. Zhou Xiao had already laid secret stakes along the way, waiting for her to come, and sacrificed so many dead men, just to play a hero saving a beauty. It doesn't matter whether the play is realistic or not. What matters is that there is a natural opportunity to get close to Chu Qinghuang. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 372. As Chu Qinghuang walked, he secretly paid attention to the movements in the house. There were many masters hiding in the dark, and there were also some dead soldiers who stayed behind. The Zhou family is Uncle Qin's most powerful support. The family is big and powerful, so they will naturally support the dead and do things for them that they cannot do on the surface. The reason why she let the Qin family go when they ransacked the house was because King Xian and Uncle Qin invested most of their property in the Zhou family's business. When officials are corrupt, it is easier to clean up if they have account books. Merchants' homes have a lot of business, but it takes a lot of effort to investigate, so it is impossible to directly confiscate their homes. Chu Qinghuang had thought before that she would check the Zhou family when she had time, but she didn't expect them to come to the door themselves. Brother 6, a pretty girl in front of her swooped over like a butterfly. She was light and agile in white clothes. Brother 6, where have you been? I have something to do dash. Before she finished speaking, the woman in white's voice stopped, her hostile and wary eyes fell on Chu Qinghuang's face, and she said coldly, Who are you? Don't be rude, Zhou Xiao scolded, this is Miss Chu, my distinguished guest. What distinguished guest? Isn't he just a good-looking vixen? Does sixth brother like her? The woman looked pale and stared at Chu Qinghuang with resentment and jealousy in her eyes. Sixth brother has a distinguished status, but she is not worthy of you at all. Chu Qinghuang glanced at her expressionlessly, then turned to look at Zhou Xiao. It seems that someone doesn't welcome me. It's my presumption to say goodbye. The woman in white froze. Miss Chu, Zhou Xiao spoke quickly and stretched out his hand to block her way, this is Zhou's cousin. She has been spoiled by her aunt since she was a child. She is coquettish and unreasonable. I hope Miss Chu is rich enough not to be as knowledgeable as her. I really have no interest in being acquainted with her, Chu Qinghuang said coldly, but I have a bad temper, and anyone who speaks rudely to me will never end well. If Mr. Zhou really wants to apologize, let her slap herself. 10 slaps, and I won't bother with her about this matter. What? The expressions of Zhou Xiao and the woman in white changed. Miss Chu. Zhou Xiao bowed deeply, with a calm and courteous attitude. Zhou apologizes for my cousin. I hope Miss Chu will be generous enough to forgive her this time. Everyone who knows me knows that I am a petty woman, narrow-minded, vindictive, and vengeful. Chu Qinghuang has never mind belittling herself, and this time is no exception. If Mr. Zhou feels embarrassed, I will not force him. But I won't stay here and continue to look at people's faces. Zhou Xiao frowned, then turned to look at the woman in white. Mei Wan, do as Miss Chu said. The woman in white was named Shen Wan. Her face changed suddenly when she heard this, and she looked at him in disbelief. Sixth brother. Not acting? Why should she slap herself? Do as you say. Zhou Xiao's tone became more serious. You were the first to be rude to Miss Chu, and you should apologize. Shen Wan turned to look at Chu Qinghuang. Her face was pale, and she said pitifully, Miss Chu. Chu Qinghuang said nothing, his expression indifferent and cold. Shenwan bit her lip, raised her hand and touched her face with a soft force, as if she hadn't eaten. Mr. Zhou's house looks very big. The Zhou family must be very rich. Chu Qinghuang's eyes fell on Shenwan. The girl's clothes also look valuable. Why don't you have enough to eat? Shenwan was so angry that she almost couldn't control her temper. However, when she thought of the rumors about Chu Qinghuang's violent temper, she had to suppress her anger and slapped her a little harder the second time. Zhou Xiao watched silently and began to hesitate in his heart. Should he implement the first plan, use the beauty trick to successfully enter the palace, and then cooperate with King Xian inside and outside, or should he use this rare opportunity to directly get rid of Chu Qinghuang? The first plan takes time, the second plan is too risky. Crack, pop, pop. After 10 slaps were given sparsely, Shenwan's face turned red, with tears of embarrassment in her eyes. She whimpered, turned around and ran away. My cousin is so ignorant. Zhou Xiao came back to his senses and put a warm and impeccable smile on his face again. I didn't make arrangements in advance, so Miss Chu was wronged. I haven't suffered any grievances. Chu Qinghuang told the truth. I like to avenge my grudges on the spot. After I have done so, I don't have to bear the grudge anymore. After all, remembering someone for a long time is quite tiring. This was the first time Zhou Xiao heard such a statement. No matter what he thought in his heart, there was only a perfect smile like a gentleman on his face. It is really rare for Miss Chu to have such a temper. Zhou is lucky enough to meet the girl today. She must have cultivated it in her previous life. Blessing comes. I think so too, Chu Qinghuang said lightly. I hope Mr. Zhou can keep this idea forever. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 373. Chu Qinghuang was placed in a small courtyard, an exquisite two-story attic, with a quiet and elegant scenery. The courtyard walls were not high, but trees were planted on 3 sides outside the walls, which could be as high as the sky. Chu Qinghuang turned around casually and looked around. 6 tall sycamore trees stood outside the courtyard and surrounded the small courtyard. There was a person guarding each tree at night, which was enough to closely monitor the people in the attic. Gee, that's really scheming. Miss Chu, take a rest for a while. I have arranged 2 smart maids for you to help Miss Chu wash up. Zhou Xiao's attitude was always gentle and polite, and he was not unhappy at all because of what just happened. I'll go and have someone prepare dinner first. Chu Qinghuang nodded. Sorry to bother you. Miss Chu doesn't have to be reserved. It's Zhou's blessing to be able to entertain such a beautiful lady as Miss Chu. Zhou Xiao said sincerely. I just hope Miss Chu won't dislike her. He nodded and calmly turned around and left. The posture is upright and elegant, with the air of a young man and a graceful demeanor. It's a pity that Chu Qinghuang didn't have time to appreciate it. Walking into the room, she looked around leisurely. The room was well decorated, with elegant and soft colors. All the furnishings were arranged according to the preferences of the girl who had not left the palace. It can be seen that a lot of thought was put into it, but the thought was not used in the right place. Chu Qinghuang put down the light baggage in her hand and sat down on the low pear wood couch in front of the window. Immediately, a maid came forward and poured her a cup of tea. Girl, please have some tea. Chu Qinghuang glanced at the teacup, picked it up and took a sip. Without drinking it, he said calmly, Isn't this tea freshly brewed? Why does it smell bitter? When the 2 maids heard this, their expressions changed, and they hurriedly lowered their heads and said, This is newly brewed tea. I don't believe it. Chu Qinghuang put down the teacup. Go get the tea leaves and hot water again, and make a new pot of tea in front of me. Yes. The 2 were about to walk out when Chu Qinghuang spoke again. Wait a minute. Girl. Chu Qinghuang asked, What are your names? The two of them bowed respectfully and replied, my maid, Chen Yu. Your servant Luo Yan. The fish sinks and the wild goose falls? Chu Qinghuang's expression was subtle. Are you originally called this name, or did Mr. Zhou just give it to you? Chen Yu replied, I just gave him the name after meeting Miss Chu. Chu Qinghuang hummed, the ubiquitous flattery was a good one. Chen Yu went to get the tea leaves, and Luo Yan came over to talk to me. She relaxed her body and leaned on the couch, raised her hand to support her chin, and gave orders as a matter of course. Yes. The two of them had been specifically told in advance that no matter what Miss Chu ordered them to do, they must do it and must not disobey. Chen Yu walked out, and Luo Yan turned around and stood not far away opposite Chu Qinghuang, and said respectfully, what do you want to talk to your servant about, young lady? Let's talk about your young master and Miss Shen. Luo Yan thought for a while and then said as if to explain, Miss Shen is my young master's cousin. There is no relationship between them that goes beyond the relationship between men and women. Miss Chu, please don't misunderstand. Misunderstand? Chu Qinghuang said calmly, I have nothing to do with your young master, so don't misunderstand me. Luo Yan pursed her lips and smiled shyly. Young master fell in love with Miss Chu at first sight, which has never happened before. Miss Shen is just jealous, but young master really has no idea about her. Miss Chu doesn't have to worry. Concern. She really didn't have any worries. Chu Qinghuang secretly thought that it would be better if Shenwan really loved Zhou Xiao, so that he could be used by her, and he didn't know what the effect would be if he came up with a plan. King Xian has not given up yet, so he asked Zhou Xiao to arrange a hero to save the beauty on the road. After saving the beauty, he naturally used the beauty trick. If there were not those beautiful servants in her backyard, Zhou Xiao with the demeanor of a handsome gentleman is still passable. It's a pity that if you compare it with those few people, people say that he stands out from the crowd of cranes. Is he a native chicken who has wandered into the flock of cranes? What's more, she wasn't interested in those little cranes, and she even looked down upon the chickens. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 374. The dinner was delivered by Zhou Xiao himself, and within a short time, he changed his clothes again. The moon-white robe embroidered with bamboo patterns, the blue satin belt, and the smooth and fitted lines make the figure tall and straight, and the appearance becomes more handsome and gentle, making him look like a handsome young man. Chu Qinghuang's eyes fell on his face, and after looking at him for a long time, he muttered, I have heard of the Zhou family before, but I have never heard of the rumors about young Master Saturday. How can you compare to the Zhou family, the #1 merchant family in Ziki? Does it matter? Zhou Xiao heard this and nodded slowly, I am the sixth son of the Zhou family. Zhou Xiao felt that it was normal for Chu Qinghuang not to recognize him. The violent princess who had lived in the imperial city for a long time cared about the beautiful concubines of aristocratic families and raided the homes of officials to make people afraid of her. She used to be obsessed with male sex. Later, when I was obsessed with power, how could I pay attention to a merchant's family? Besides, Zhou Xiao never thought that a nymphomaniac and violent princess would be very capable. Even if she had ascended the throne and became the queen, she was still a brainless woman. She only used brute force to steal a few corrupt officials, and the emperor thought he was capable and courageous, but he abdicated hastily and gave the throne to her. It's almost child's play. When I saw her today, she was really good at martial arts. However, the king of a country traveled thousands of miles with only a few guards around him. Do you really think that you are invincible? In order to act as a hero and save the beauty today, he only sent out 30 dead soldiers. If he had arranged a few more people, she would definitely be killed on the spot. From this, it can be seen that inappropriate overconfidence is arrogance. Zhou Xiao already had a preconceived idea of her, so no matter how he looked at it at this time, he felt that she had nothing but beauty and martial arts. What's even more ridiculous is that all the legitimate princes in the court were defeated by such a woman. It can be seen that the heirs of the royal family are not necessarily much smarter than the men of merchant families. "So you are a descendant of the Zhou family," Chu Qinghuang exclaimed with admiration. "You are indeed a talented person." Zhou Xiao was humble. "Miss Chu is the one who can conquer a country and make people fall in love with her at first sight. Well, I'm so rude and can't help myself at the moment. Please forgive me, Miss Chu." Chu Qinghuang smiled half-heartedly. "Everyone loves beauty, I don't mind." Zhou Xiao smiled and looked very happy. "Miss Chu, you must be hungry. Try the food cooked in the kitchen to see if it suits your taste." As he said that, he sat down elegantly and took clean chopsticks to pick up vegetables for Chu Qinghuang. Honey glazed squab, fragrant crispy chicken nuggets, sweet and sour. "I don't like people picking up food for me." Zhou Xiao froze, then retracted his hand apologetically, brought her bowl in front of him, and gave her his own bowl. Chu Qinghuang said, "I don't want to use your bowl." Zhou Xiao smiled and said, "I haven't touched this before." Chu Qinghuang didn't speak, but frowned with an unhappy expression on his face. "Chen Yu," Zhou Xiao quickly ordered, "give Miss Chu another bowl." "Yes." From beginning to end he was extremely good-tempered and never lost his temper. He is really good at controlling his emotions. What he needs when walking in the mall is to be calm, always wearing a harmless smile, so that no one can guess what he is thinking. Chen Yu quickly served Chu Qinghuang another bowl of rice and stepped aside respectfully. "Due to time constraints, I have no choice but to offend Miss Chu tonight," Zhou Shaoan said. "I asked the kitchen to stew a bowl of bird's nest porridge at night, and Miss Chu can eat it when she gets up early tomorrow morning." Chu Qinghuang said calmly, "Master Zhou is so considerate to all women." "How is it possible?" Zhou Xiao smiled. "There are so many women in the world, how can I be considerate? Miss Chu is different. I am impressed, and unconsciously I want to be nicer to Miss Chu. If there is anything rude, please forgive me, Miss Chu." "Is this a veteran of the game Huasong?" Chu Qinghuang said nothing and lowered his head to take a few bites of the food. "How does it taste?" Zhou Xiaoxiao asked. "If it doesn't suit the taste, I'll ask them to make it again." Chu Qinghuang raised her eyes and looked at him. "When we first met, Mr. Zhou not only helped me, but also took care of me so meticulously. Is there any ulterior motive?" Zhou Xiao chuckled. "Miss Chu is so cute, what ulterior motives can I have?" As he spoke, his smile faded slightly, and he looked at Chu Qinghuang seriously, with a bit more tenderness in his eyes. "It's just that there is a beautiful woman in front of me, left behind and independent, looking at King Gran City and then King Gran Country." Chu Qinghuang felt that the meal in front of her was so chewy and nauseating. Well, she was sure that she really didn't have that much patience to be with this man. Every time he said another word, she couldn't help but want to pick up the plate and slam it into his face. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 375. So after dinner, Chu Qinghuang decided to rest for 2 hours and get up after the hour of the rat to hurry on. As for how to get rid of the spy in the yard, Chinayu and Luoyan fetched hot water and helped Chu Qinghuang take a bath. Chu Qinghuang had been in a hurry to travel these 2 days, so she really didn't take a hot bath properly. She didn't refuse, but just said indifferently, "I don't like people watching me when I take a bath, you all go out first." But the sixth master told the maid to serve the young lady well. "I said, no need," Chu Qinghuang said indifferently, "go out." "Yes." The two had to turn around and leave. Chu Qinghuang walked to the bathtub, reached out to pick up the petals floating on the water, put down her nose and sniffed. It was pitch black outside the window, and the evening breeze blew gently, rustling the leaves. Apart from this, the yard was quiet, with no other sounds. Chu Qinghuang undressed and stepped into the bathtub, She took a bath at a speed she had never taken before. She simply washed off the dust on her body, dried her body, opened the bag she carried with her, took out a black dress from it and put it on. She put the banknotes and tokens in her pocket and hid the dagger in her boot. After doing all this, she randomly picked up a piece of clothing from the clothes she had changed out of, turned around to take the candle on the table, walked to the window behind, gently opened the window, lit the clothes with the candle and threw them out. Then she closed the window. The wind suddenly blew. Several figures flew over. What's going on? Why is there a fire? Miss Chu. Miss Chu. Chu Qinghuang slowly opened the window and looked at the several black-clothed people who were startled outside. Her expression was cold and impatient. What are you arguing about? I was too lazy to wash the dirty clothes I changed out of, so I just set them on fire. Is there any need to make such a fuss? Several black-clothed people looked at each other. Instead of washing the clothes, they burned them directly. This was the first time they met such a willful master. What's going on? The door was pushed open, and Zhou Xiao rushed in with a few people. What happened? Chu Qinghuang turned to look at him with a cold and unhappy expression. Miss Chu. Zhou Xiao's face showed apology. I'm sorry, I heard the noise, and I was too nervous for a while, fearing that Miss Chu had an accident. He paused, as if explaining, there are all kinds of people here, so it's better to be careful. Get out. Zhou Xiao subconsciously looked around the room and glimpsed the clothes scattered on the bedside. Let Janai Luian take the clothes to wash. I only wear my clothes once, Chu Qinghuang said indifferently. Why wash it? Wear only once. Janai and Luian, who followed in, were shocked. The clothes on this Miss Chu were made of the finest materials, which only princes and nobles could wear, and each piece was worth a lot of money. How about this? Zhou Xiao smiled. Let them wash it. If Miss Chu doesn't want to wear it anymore, give it to them. It's also theirs. Give it to them, Chu Qinghuang sneered, her tone a little more angry. Are they worthy of wearing my clothes? Zhou Xiao immediately realized that he had spoken out of turn, and apologized again and again. Miss Chu, calm down, I spoke out of turn. Get out. Zhou Xiao's expression was slightly stiff. This direct descendant of the Zhou family had been praised by others for many years. Because of his outstanding ability among the brothers, he was trained early on. Which of the managers in the family didn't respect him accidentally over the years? Even if he had to face all kinds of people in the business world, no one had ever embarrassed him so much in front of him. But soon, he smiled again, and there was even some indulgence in his smile. Okay, I'll go out now, don't be angry. Chu Qinghuang had a bad temper and acted capriciously. You don't have to take her words and temper to heart. Zhou Xiao quickly led his people out, leaving only Chanayu and Luian to serve. You guys go out too. Chu Qinghuang looked at the two coldly. I want to be alone. Chanayu and Luian's faces changed, and they looked up at Zhou Xiao. Zhou Xiao was about to close the door, and he smiled and said, let them stay here and serve. Do you need me to repeat it? Zhou Xiao sighed. You guys go out too. The two maids followed him out. Chu Qinghuang walked to the bed slowly, took another piece of clothing and lit it up and threw it out. The black-clothed man who was about to leave the window had a slightly condensed expression, his eyes were like lightning, and he stared at the burning clothes without blinking, as if he could stare out flowers. Chu Qinghuang let them watch, and simply stuffed the inner clothes into the bundle, lit it with fire together with the bundle, and threw it out of the window. Such behavior is obviously against common sense, but no one dared to say anything. After doing this, Chu Qinghuang turned around and went back to sleep. The men in black always felt that there was something fishy about taking the clothes, so they dared not close their eyes at all and stared at the fire closely. They did not dare to relax until the fire went out. All those who were originally on duty kept their eyes open and watched for half the night, but did not notice anything unusual. Finally, they felt sleepy at the hour of J. Dollar window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 376. Zhou Xiao also stayed in the yard for a long time, firstly so that he could rush in time if another accident happened, and secondly, of course, to prevent accidents from happening. But as he waited, the room suddenly became quiet, and after a while, the lights went out. With a slight frown on his brows, he asked his attendant to go to the back window to check. He followed the order and left. After a while, he came back and reported, "Everything is normal, the clothes have been burned." Zhou Xiao was puzzled. Is it really just to burn the clothes? Walking in shopping malls for many years, he has long learned to think twice about everything. Even though he has long known that Chu Qinghuang has a bad temper and does things his own way, burning clothes should be just a temporary act of willfulness, but he does not dare to take it lightly. At this moment, it seems that he is really worried. Zhou Xiao looked up at the dead soldiers on duty in the tree and said calmly, "Let them keep an eye on her and protect Miss Chu." Yes. Zhou Xiao glanced at the window again and wanted to go over and say something, but he was worried about making Chu Qinghuang displeased again, so he gave up and turned around to leave. The soldier on duty at Zhouxi suddenly felt sleepy for some unknown reason. This is almost impossible for them to do well in training. Even if they don't sleep for 2 days, they will not fall asleep during the mission. But tonight I just missed it. Chu Qinghuang opened his eyes, and in the darkness, a pair of pupils were sharp and cold. She slept with her clothes on last night, and she had already brought everything with her, so there was no need to pack anything. There was a faint rustling sound outside the window. The room was dark. Chu Qinghuang gently opened the window, jumped out, and quickly disappeared into the night. Even the dead men watching on the tall branches were unaware of it. The rustling sound gradually got closer. The dead soldiers suddenly woke up from their dreams, their nerves trembling. What's the sound? As soon as he opened his mouth, the others recovered from the chaos, their eyes were like lightning, and they instinctively tilted their ears. Susu. Swish. Snake. One person's voice was tight, and there are more than one or two, it seems like many snakes are crawling over together. The others looked at each other. Although there are inevitably insects, snakes, and wild animals in this unattended area, this house has been carefully maintained and there should be no snakes. The few people spoke for a very short time, but the rustling sounds became clearer and clearer. They were everywhere in the grass, under the corridors, and in the courtyard. The dead soldiers couldn't stand still any longer, and one of them said in a cold voice, "I will report to Mr. 6. Others were staring warily under the big tree. In the darkness, they could not ignore the pairs of green eyes, which were simply a sight that made people feel numb. A few people didn't dare to act without permission. They were good at killing people with one move, but they couldn't get rid of all these snakes with one move. What's more, some of these snakes were poisonous and some were non-venomous. They were even more worried about being bitten by a poisonous snake accidentally. Or once there is the smell of blood, it will attract more snake companions. After a while, a torch lit up in the distance. Zhou Xiao, who had been woken up in the middle of the night, hurried over with his clothes on. Under the light of the fire, the scene in the small courtyard was simply numb. Suddenly so many snakes came out from nowhere, big and small, spotted snakes, green bamboo leaves, white snakes, silver rings, All kinds of snakes rushed towards the attic, spitting out their letters, and surrounded them. Zhou Xiao's expression changed drastically. What's going on? Where did so many snakes come from? Some snakes had begun to climb up the trees, and the dead soldiers had to fly down from the trees and rush to the corridor. The subordinates and others had been guarding the trees, and suddenly they heard the sound of snakes. Zhou Xiao was horrified when he thought of Chu Qinghuang living in the attic. Miss Chu is still in the house. Here we are. The dead soldiers lowered their heads. My subordinates have been keeping watch and have not seen Miss Chu come out. Zhou Xiao ordered, go into the house and wake up Miss Chu. With so many snakes, if Miss Chu were hurt, the consequences would be disastrous. But who can get in? Tiny snakes had begun to get in through the cracks in the windows and doors. Zhou Xiao was almost out of his mind and ordered sternly, go and save people. The first dead man took the order and rushed forward. However, as soon as he kicked open the door, a small snake scurried down from the eaves like lightning and bit him on the neck. Before the dead man could even raise his hand, he felt paralyzed all over. He couldn't move either. With a bang, the body fell over. Zhou Xiao took over the power of the family at a young age. He was used to giving orders in shopping malls and chatting and laughing. He had enjoyed great success in the past 2 years. How had he ever encountered a situation like this tonight? Seeing the dead men rushing up one by one and falling down one by one, it was impossible to get close to the attic, but countless snakes were getting in one after another, which made his heart feel like it fell into an ice cellar. It's over, disaster is coming. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 377. Sixth Master, there are too many snakes. The attendant frowned and had to make a suggestion, how about burning it? Zhou Xiao turned his head and said coldly, are you planning to burn Miss Chu to death in there? Sixth Master, don't forget, His Royal Highness Prince Xian means. A hint of murderous intent flashed across the attendant's eyes, and he made a move to kill without mercy. As long as she is eliminated, Prince Xian, as the only legitimate son of the Queen Mother, will be the legitimate candidate for the Emperor. At that time, the court officials will unanimously support him, and with the help of the Zhou family and the uncle's mansion, Prince Xian will sit on the throne without any effort. The original three-legged tripod among the princes had already collapsed under the suppression of Chu Qinghuang. The fifth prince Chu Tianzheng was not a material for being an emperor at all. Besides, the Ling family behind him was gone, and concubine Duan could not turn the tide alone. The prince of Jin's mansion was also defeated. Not only concubine Feng and the queen mother were killed one after another, but even the father and son of the prince of Zhenbei were involved. What else can he do? Now, if Chu Qinghuang gets into trouble, King Xian is the only candidate for the emperor. Zhou Xiao said coldly, do you listen to King Xian or me? The attendant's face changed, and he hurriedly said, I will naturally listen to Sixth Master. Since you listen to me, stop talking nonsense. Zhou Xiao gritted his teeth and rushed into the house without hesitation, save people. Sixth Master, the attendant's face suddenly changed, and he quickly reached out to grab him. Sixth Master, no, this is too dangerous. Let go. I can't let go, huh? The poisonous snakes are scattered. The attendant looked at the snakes in surprise, crawling flexibly on the ground as if they were driven, crawling out of the house, and heading towards the grass in the backyard. The snakes hovering on the eaves, trees, and corridors all left in one direction, and soon retreated completely. Many subordinates stared at the scene blankly, not knowing what was going on. The poisonous snakes came and went as they said. Zhou Xiao stared at the broken door, not caring about the few assassins who died in the attack of the venomous snake, and rushed into the room. The bed was empty. Zhou Xiao watched silently, thinking of the burning clothes that Chu Qinghuang threw out of the window last night, and the strange situation just now. He vaguely guessed something in his heart, and his eyebrows and eyes became gloomy little by little. Sixth Master, someone rushed in from outside, the masters who came with Miss Chu are gone, and their mounts are also. Before he finished speaking, he glimpsed the scene in the room and swallowed the words silently. Zhou Xiao's expression was uncertain, and his hands slowly clenched. Sixth Master, another subordinate came quickly, presenting a small letter tube with both hands. This. Zhou Xiao took the letter tube, unfolded it and took a look, and fell silent again. Tonight I'm sending a small gift to Mr. Liu. It's not a token of respect, but please accept it. On May 8th, I'll host a banquet in the capital of Ziki to entertain Mr. Liu. Zhou Xiao stared at the few words on the letter without saying a word. He didn't know whether to be angry or happy. He underestimated Chu Qinghuang, this woman who stood out from many princes and sat on the throne as a daughter should not be underestimated. Sir, a subordinate beside him whispered, in addition to this letter, there are two things missing in the study. Zhou Xiao came back to his senses. What is missing? A secret letter from Uncle Qin, which is the one asking you to assassinate Miss Chu, and another one, is your token. Zhou Xiao raised his eyes slightly, his expression unpredictable. Did they take it away? It should be. This makes me have to go. Zhou Xiao smiled softly. I was careless to capsize in the ditch tonight. Sir, do you want to chase her? The subordinate's face was solemn. The secret letter is the most important evidence. What if she has murderous intentions towards the Zhou family? The emperor was angry, and corpses floated thousands of miles away. A merchant family could not compete with the imperial power at all. Especially the one sitting on the throne is a madman who does things according to her own preferences. No one can stop her from doing whatever she wants. Chase. Zhou Xiao glanced at them indifferently. Can you catch up? Besides, even if you catch up, what will happen? Even these assassins failed in front of her. What can others do? Who knows how many tricks she has yet to use? After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 378. If this is a real pursuit, it doesn't mean that you really can't catch up. But what if we catch up? Regicide was a major crime against the 9 clans, and Zhou Xiao knew the stakes involved. Once he was really unfavorable to Chu Qinghuang. If he was lucky enough to succeed, he would be in the hands of King Xian. If he couldn't succeed, Chu Qinghuang would never let go of the Zhou family. Moreover, after spending just one day with Chu Qinghuang, he had already vaguely understood that Her Majesty, the youngest and only empress in the history of Ziki, was by no means as incompetent as the rumors said. He cannot bear the crime of regicide, nor can he bear the crime of rebellion. So starting from today, he must cut off his relationship with King Xian. Zhou Xiao was silent for a long time, then turned around and walked out of the room, giving an order, withdraw all the spy agents sent out. The assassin responsible for the assassination cancelled the mission and escorted Miss Chu back to the capital instead. No mistakes should be made. When the subordinates present heard this, they were all shocked. Young master. Follow it. Zhou Xiao glanced coldly. If you want to keep the Zhou family, you will cut off all contact with Uncle Qin's house from now on, and no one will be allowed to act without permission. Yes. Zhou Xiao walked into the courtyard, looked back at the attic, his eyebrows darkened, and he regretted what he said to Chu Qinghuang yesterday. A woman like her probably hates other people's flattery the most. But you can make up for it. Azhui, he said calmly, did the oral message from Uncle Qin say that Her Majesty the Queen wants to borrow money from Dongling? Yes. How much to borrow? I'm not sure. Azhui thought for a while. I heard that the treasury has no money. Her Majesty the Queen wants to borrow 10 million taels of silver, but it's hard to say whether Dongling will borrow it. Zhou Xiao was silent. The Ziki treasury is indeed short of money, even for many years. Every year, taxes are collected to make up for the various gaps. It is a great pressure for the soldiers in the military camp to replace a batch of sophisticated weapons and armor. Of course, part of the military pay allocated from the treasury to the military camps was embezzled by Ling Anken. Although some were confiscated from the house, Ling Anken was in charge of the military in those years, running the affairs from top to bottom, traveling between the DPRK and China, and the Ling family members were extravagant, and wasteful. Got a lot of money. The same goes for other powerful families. The unspent money can be copied out, but the money that has been spent cannot be taken back. So the treasury is very tight. If he could solve the Queen's urgent need. Zhou Xiao thought like this and already had a plan in mind. Chu Qinghuang didn't know that Zhou Xiao's attitude had changed drastically after just one night. The reason why she hurried on was not only because she didn't want to stay and deal with Zhou Xiao, but the most important thing was to find out the intentions of the Prince of Yan Kingdom. As for the Zhou family, she didn't pay much attention to it yet. Traveling day and night like this, it took another 6 or 7 days to reach Ziki. The journey was surprisingly smooth, and no one with a blind eye encountered any obstruction, robbery, or assassination. Chu Qinghuang rode into the imperial city, and the informants of the major princes got the news and reported back to the palace in time. What? King Xian Chu Tianqiu stood up suddenly, his face dark and angry. Chu Qinghuang is back. Prince Xian's palace informant replied, yes. I just saw the queen entering the city gate and heading towards the palace. Chu Tianqiu gritted his teeth. Zhou Xiao is a loser. You can't handle such a small thing, and you still dare to call yourself the youngest head of the Zhou family. Your Majesty, what should we do now? Everyone has returned, what else can we do? King Xian said coldly, tell your men not to act rashly. Yes. In Prince Ling's mansion, Chu Tianling also received news that Chu Qinghuang had returned to the palace. She came back by herself. There are only a few guards accompanying me. Chu Tianling was sitting in the study, holding a file in his hand, his eyebrows dyed with a deep color. Did she receive some news, or was she trying to make something mysterious? Jian Kong drove to Tangling in a light car. They took a detour on the road to get rid of the following eyes, but arrived at Tangling a few days earlier than they expected. According to the original plan, since I recognized the regent of Dongling as my father, I should have stayed in Dongling for a while longer when I went to visit the Emperor of Dongling and borrow money on the way. At least I should have waited for the Emperor of Dongling. It is the most basic etiquette to come back after the birthday. But judging from the speed at which Chu Qinghuang came back, she probably didn't even wait until the end of February. Is it because I couldn't borrow the money, or is there another reason? Chu Tianling frowned deeply. Dongling and Ziki were far apart, and even the fastest intelligence could not send back accurate news in time. Therefore, it is impossible to judge the inside story at the moment. After returning to the palace, Chu Qinghuang spent half an hour washing, bathing, changing clothes, taking a short rest, and another half an hour enjoying a sumptuous meal. Then she ordered Yuan Bao, send the order to summon King Rong, King Ling, King Xian, and Chu Xuanyi to the palace to discuss matters. Yes. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 379. While waiting for several people to enter the palace, Chu Qinghuang sat and drank a cup of tea, looking through the files and memorials that had accumulated on the long case during this period. During her absence, all the matters reported by the ministers were discussed and approved by Prince Rong together with several ministers in the cabinet. They were handled in an orderly manner. The file contained the process and list of students selected in the spring period, which were also recorded in detail. Chu Qinghuang's eyes fell on the first and second names on the student list. After a moment, he said lightly, Minjiao. His Majesty. Summon Chu Suans and Wen Zhan in the evening to have dinner at Muyanxuan. Chu Qinghuang ordered. Go to Kintian prison and summon Hong Yu. Yes. After a while, King Rong and others arrived one after another, and each performed the courtesy of a monarch and his ministers. Chu Qinghuang raised his eyes slightly, glanced at Chu Tianling and Chu Tianqiu, quickly looked away, and said calmly, Ping Shen. Thank you, Your Majesty. Chu Qinghuang lowered his eyes slightly. Uncle Huang has worked hard during my absence. This is the official duty of the minister, and I dare not express my sorrow. Prince Rong said in a humble tone, adhering to his duties as a minister. Your Majesty, for the sake of the Western Qi state, you went to Dongling to borrow money in person, regardless of your own safety. It is really hard for you. Chu Qinghuang glanced at him. I have just read the archives and roughly looked at Qi Wei's rankings. The imperial examination will be scheduled for early June. The emperor's uncle and the Ministry of Rites are responsible for arranging the food and accommodation of the students who have entered the rankings during this period. Yes. Students have been preparing for the exam for 3 years. It is self-evident that they have worked hard during this period. You can relax a little this month, Chu Qinghuang said. There is no need to control the brothels and palaces too strictly. Students just don't overindulge. Occasionally indulge in sensuality and arty manners. These are all normal needs. As soon as these words came out, the Kinzen hall suddenly became quiet. What's wrong? Chu Qinghuang raised his eyes. Am I wrong? No. King Rong shook his head quickly. He just suddenly remembered something. During the period when His Majesty was away, I received nearly 100 letters of gratitude, all written by students to Your Majesty. I didn't want to aggravate other adults. In order to bear their burden, we temporarily collected the letters and presented them to His Majesty for review later. When Chu Tianling and Chu Tianqiu heard this, their expressions suddenly became a little ugly. Chu Tian's broad bamboo basket fetched water in vain. Years ago, he carefully arranged for the Zhou family to prepare money in advance and distribute it to students who came to Beijing to take the exam, in order to win people's hearts. However, someone ruined this plan. The students were embarrassed along the way, and some even handed out pens, ink, paper, and inkstones after arriving in Beijing, but all the credit for these achievements goes to Her Majesty the Queen. A dignified student who studied sagely books for 10 years but did not know the principles of yin and yang could succumb to the rule of a woman so easily. It was simply eye-opening. Zhou's trash. The more Chu Tianqiu thought about it, the more unwilling he became, and he couldn't help blaming all this on the Zhou family's incompetence. The students are all the new blood in the court and will be the pillars of the country in the future. It is right for me to do something for them, Chu Qinghuang said. However, on the way back to Beijing this time, I encountered something that made people uncomfortable. Pleasant thing? Not too pleasant? King Rong looked slightly stern. Your Majesty is referring to. Does King Xian know the secret letter? Chu Qinghuang picked up a secret letter and raised it, looking at Chu Tianqiu. This is a letter written by the second emperor brother to Zhou Xiao, the young master of the Zhou family, asking him to arrange men at various intersections from Dongling to Ziki to assassinate me. Like a bolt from the blue, Chu Tianqiu's face suddenly changed and he denied sternly, I didn't. You have. Chu Qinghuang's expression was cold and his attitude was tough and could not be refuted. Starting today, Chu Tianqiu will be stripped of all his royal titles and demoted to a commoner. He will no longer enjoy the honor of the royal family and will be thrown into a prison. Dali Temple joint interrogation. The air seemed to freeze instantly. Chu Tianqiu's face turned pale. Chu Qinghuang, you are slanderous. In order to deal with me, you fabricated evidence at will and fabricated rumors to frame me. Chu Xuanyi. Chu Qinghuang ignored his hysteria and said coldly, take him down. I obey the order, Chu Xuanyi responded, turned around and said in a deep voice, here comes. More than a dozen imperial guards with swords came in outside the Kinzen hall, lowering their heads and waiting for instructions. Take Prince Xian. Before Chu Xuanyi finished speaking, he changed his words and said, Take the common man Chu Tianqiu to the prison to await trial. Yes. Chu Tianqiu struggled, Chu Qinghuang. Chu Qinghuang. You have wronged me. That letter is fake. I don't know the young master of the Zhou family at all. Are you afraid that I will threaten your throne? Chu Qinghuang, as soon as my father abdicated the throne, you couldn't wait to eradicate dissidents. You are narrow-minded and vicious. The imperial guards escorted him away, and their voices became farther and farther away, until they could no longer be heard clearly. The Kinzen hall was so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 380. Chu Qinghuang's eyes fell on Chu Tianling's face, and her voice was calm. Brother, why don't you say anything? Do you have no doubts about this matter? Chu Tianling had nothing to say. He knew in his heart what Chu Tianqiu had done. Although he had never witnessed his dealings with the Zhou family, he had sent people to investigate more than once. What's more, Chu Tianqiu is too impatient. People tend to make mistakes when they are in a hurry. The evidence is conclusive, so what's the use even if he shouts with no grace at all? After thinking for a while, he said, Your Majesty has always been straightforward in his work. He should not bother to use dark means to deliberately frame him. Brother, the Emperor thinks so highly of me. Chu Qinghuang raised his eyebrows and placed the letter in his hand on the case. I can only say that he trusts others too easily, and he dares to write such a letter himself. The one delivered to me evidence, I can't even turn a blind eye. As he said that, his eyes fell on Chu Tianling's face. Brother, the Emperor should not make such a mistake. Chu Tianling's fingertips trembled unconsciously, and he lowered his eyes and said, Your Majesty is the Emperor of 11 Qi. I will not do anything I shouldn't do, nor will I have any thoughts I shouldn't have. Whether what the eldest brother said is true or false, I believe it is true. Chu Qinghuang lowered his eyes and looked at the memorial. I have a bad temper and it is known throughout the court, so no matter who violates the family law, I won't let it go easily, but I am also a frank person, and I will never wrongly accuse anyone without any real evidence. Knock on the mountain to frighten the tiger, kill the chicken to scare the monkeys. Chu Tianqiu's ending was already foreseeable. Chu Qinghuang told him in such a straightforward and ruthless way that the master of Ziki was determined and no one would be allowed to have any more delusions. The officials will be very busy during this period, and the eldest brother is working hard. Chu Qinghuang said. After the imperial examination, many new students entered the court. I don't want to see anyone in the court deliberately suppressing or winning over these students. Chu Tianling responded, Yes. I will pay attention to it. Chu Qinghuang hummed, You should go back first, I will talk to the Emperor about something. I excuse myself. Chu Tianling saluted, turned around and left calmly. After walking out of the Kinzen hall, Chu Tianling looked far into the distance, looking at the sun that was gradually setting in the west. Only then did he realize that his back was already wet with sweat, and it was biting cold when the wind blew it. It's obviously late spring. Feeling a little weak under his feet, Chu Tianling narrowed his eyes and walked slowly, covering up the dark and inexplicable luster in his eyes. There was another sensation in the imperial city. There was a rumbling sound. Her Majesty the Queen, who went to Dongling to borrow money, raided Prince Xian's palace as soon as she returned to court. Not only was Prince Xian demoted to a commoner and imprisoned in the sky prison, but the pregnant Princess Xian was also trapped. The royal forest army surrounded Prince Xian's mansion, making the interior and exterior of the mansion airtight so that not a single mosquito could fly out. Along with the joy of the students who had just released their results, this decree obviously poured cold water on the original joy, making people instantly uneasy. Historically, when a new emperor ascends the throne, he is accompanied by a general amnesty and the eradication of dissidents. The general amnesty pardons minor offenders who have violated the law, and eradicates dissidents and eradicates those who oppose him. This is not a contradiction. But it inevitably casts a shadow over many people. Especially the officials of King Xian's faction were all as frightened as a frightened bird. The sun sets quickly. Hong Yu, who was dressed in a plain white light robe, arrived at Qinzhen Hall with steady steps and asked to see Her Majesty the Queen. Come in. Hong Yu walked in and saluted politely. Your Majesty, Zhan Hong Yu, is here to see Her Majesty the Queen. Long live Your Majesty. Long live Your Majesty. Chu Qinghuang raised her eyes and caught a glimpse of his immortal appearance. The corner of her mouth twitched. When did you change your style like this? Reporting to Your Majesty, I am currently working in Qintian prison. The adults in Qintian prison are all calm and indifferent, and do not want to live in the world. I am following the local customs, and I am pursuing my own affairs in my position Hong Yu's faction. Seriously, Your Majesty, do you think I have a little more fairy spirit in you? Fairy spirit? Chu Qinghuang looked at him. There is no immortal energy, but there is just some demonic energy. Hong Yu was immediately dissatisfied. Your Majesty is not telling the truth. The adults in Qintian prison say that I am a little fairy boy. Why am I so evil?